even if it's small pieces, but set it in motion, whatever it looks like. Just set your goal in motion. And it might be literally writing it out for now, or journaling it out, or taking any kind of small steps, because once you start to take small steps, it gains momentum. And really, without the steps, without the little momentum, then it won't change if you don't have anything that you're starting to make the path forward. And it may be something that you're working towards and it's 5 years or 6 years from now, but that's okay. It's you're showing up for yourself is what you're doing. And you're saying, that you are worthy of that, and you're authentically doing something towards something that you desire personally, that you want for yourself. So I always just start whatever it is.
Welcome to Limitless, the podcast for cycle breakers, change makers, and conscious leaders who are done performing, proving, and pleasing, and are ready to live, lead, and create from deep alignment. I'm your host, Fiona Walsh. Every 2 weeks, I hold space for real soul-expanding conversations with guests who are still in it. They're navigating their biggest fears, shedding old identities, letting go of patterns that no longer serve them, and rising into their limitless potential. Together, we share what it's really like to be human. Messy, raw, imperfect, and learning to own every part of ourselves, even the ones we've tried to keep neatly tucked away. We go deep into the work of coming home to yourself, getting out of your head, feeling safe in your body, letting go of old stories, and creating a life that's true to who you really are. Subscribing to Limitless is the best way to make sure you never miss an episode. So hit pause and tap follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Because this isn't about doing more. It's actually about remembering who you are. And that's what makes you limitless. Welcome to Limitless. Today, I'm joined by Lynae. She's a mum. She's an inspector with the Delta Police Department over here in Vancouver. And she's a founder of Healthy Living with Lynae. Lynae has spent more than 25 years in law enforcement, and she's worked across major crimes, sex crimes, unsolved homicides, and internal affairs. She's the real deal. But alongside her policing career, Lynae has really built something quite unique and different. She's registered in natural nutrition, holistic nutrition. She's a certified holistic counselor, and she's a mindset coach. And she's taken all of these new learnings and incorporated them into her current job, where she serves as the department's in-house nutritionist. So she helps all of the officers and staff in the police force optimize their health, which is so incredible. At the center of all of this, Lynae is a mother. And it's a role that has deeply shaped how she sees her strength, her resilience, her protection, her boundaries, and what truly matters. Now, on paper, Lynae's career is defined by leadership, by service, by discipline. But after a near-death experience, which you'll hear about in the episode today, everything shifted for her. And what followed wasn't just her physical recovery. It was a deep reckoning with her identity. She checked in on self-abandonment, boundaries, and the quiet ways we override ourselves while still appearing very strong and resilient to everybody else. In this conversation, we explore what it really means to build for impact, not professionally, but also personally. We talk about disassociation, when our mind and body are not attached and are not connected and talking. We talk about survival in high-pressure roles. We go into external validation and walking away from identities that no longer fit. There's a real steadiness to Lynae, a real grounded resilience, and a deep commitment to living and leading in alignment. I am so honored to have her here with me today. Lynae, welcome to Limitless. I'm so excited you're here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So can you take us back to that moment in time, that turning point where you thought everything has to change, and let us know where you were at, what it looked like, what it felt like?
Wow. So, I thought about this because I've had so many different moments in life that really did some pivotal movements for me. But I have to say, the moment that hit the most in life is in 2018. I was basically staring death in the face when I had a near-death experience after a medical procedure. And from that moment onwards, it was a very, very difficult time. I had gone in for a pretty significant surgery I had had previously, 4 times previous. So I knew what to expect. I knew what recovery would look like. And during the medical procedure, we had a serious incident take place during the surgery. Lo and behold, I didn't know at the time. So I was released from hospital 2-3 days later and rushed back in. And basically all my kidneys were going into failure and I went into sepsis. And from there, I had to undergo another 4 surgeries, a lot of medical intervention in the hospital for quite some time, had some significant risks during that time, some permanent nerve, leg damage, and things like that. So during that time, I had a lot of time to reflect, a lot of time to think, a lot of moments of, am I going to get through this and see my daughter again? A lot of moments of reflecting on conversations I've never had, and a lot of reflection on, I guess, how in life to that point, I had not been true to myself in the sense of just, boundaries and really standing up for myself and moving forward. Things needed to change. And so, I was in my 40s at the time, and a lot of different scenarios in life had happened before that. But I think when you go through a situation like that, life will never be never be the same. You see things differently. You reflect on things differently. The birds sound different. The grass looks greener. Like it literally hits everything on such a profound way. But you really dig deep in moments. You find your strength. You find significant clarity on how you want to move forward, and what really, truly, truly matters. So that, I would say, would be my pivotal moment of clarity and how I want to position myself moving forward.
And so tell me, once you'd worked through all of that and had a lot of time, as you said, to reflect and go deep, deep into those inner layers, at that moment in time, did you have a clear view of what you desired your life to look and feel like?
I did. I've always been into health and wellness. I've always had that really desire to help others. But it was the clarity of I've never really truly shown up for myself like I have for others in every area. And so during that time, it was a real period that I need to start showing up for myself. I need to show up for myself in ways that I never have before. And that took so many different avenues in terms of parenting, relationships, my career, just in every aspect that you can imagine. And I felt coming out of that, I was really showing up differently in all areas of my life. But the biggest piece was how I was showing up for myself. And that was the real pivotal piece that came from that. And I mean, too, you really get to know people when you go through a really difficult situation like that, on who shows up, where you're putting energy, where you're putting your time. And is it moving forward? Is that were you, I guess, landing your energy in the proper places where you're getting it reciprocated back? And it really comes clear when you go through something like that, who's really your core. who's really going to show up. So that was a big clarity piece for me.
And when you started reassessing all those different parts of your life where you weren't putting yourself first, or maybe you were self-abandoning or betraying yourself, did yourself did it show up as number one first, or did you tackle other parts of your life first before you landed on, oh no, this really stops with me?
It was, I think because of the time of reflection, you start to look at different areas where you did self-abandonment all the way through. And so it's like, it really does come back to you. I'm the one, I've dealt with significant things in life from early childhood all the way up into my 40s, up until that point. But there becomes a time where you're like, it is on you. It is truly on you to break the cycles, to break the boundaries, to break, the different scenarios that have taken place that you've allowed to continue, because that's all you've known, but you've also known that they're not right. And so during that time, ultimately it's, you have to start to make those decisions that you're going to try to change patterns, trying to be really true to you, regardless of it might be against everything that you've known. And it really may really start to stir things up, right? Things are not going to be ever the same again, because when you start to push back or start to stand up in ways that people aren't used to you standing up in those ways, it creates a little bit of initial chaos, right? It's like, what are you doing? This isn't the Lynae that I know, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What did you have to unlearn to start trusting yourself again?
You know what? It's taken years. It's really taken years. And I think anybody that is in a particular way of life and it becomes your norm, I think it's a lot of relearning, retrusting. And for myself personally, is I've been through, different areas of life where you almost self-abandon, where you're not even sure of your own voice in a way. And I think a lot of people wouldn't think that of me because I'm in a leadership role. I'm high executive. I can, go at a high level in everything that I do. But I think when you abandon what you truly know deep inside, and you kind of abandon that piece all along, and it's a very slow progression of it, you don't really realize until there's a moment where you're like, okay, this has been ongoing for so many years that it's going to take some time to unravel that. And it's a process. It's a long process. It's, questioning everywhere you show up. What does it look like? Is it in alignment with you? Is it never sat with you right and you're going to question it now? It's a long process. So during that time in 2018, it was really just reforming how relationships were going to look. And I think when you show up uniquely and start to really say, no, there's my boundary, or this is what I stand for, the people start to fall off that no longer really need to exist in that circle anymore. Because if you're self-abandoning yourself, in a lot of relationships, that works, right? And then when you start to show up, it doesn't work necessarily for, the people that may be in your circle. So, you have to be prepared to lose friendships or relationships, or not be, in the circles of maybe the popular circles or whatever it looks like, right? But I think at the end of the day, you're the one that has to be okay with how you're showing up for yourself. And ultimately that's that's such a big piece for me, is just being genuine and authentic. And, that's where the peace comes in. That's where true peace comes in, is no more self-abandonment for other people, for situations, across the board, professional or what have you. Right. And that's, leads me to my passion of why I do what I do now. So.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because it sounds like you were living out of alignment for so long, but because it was so normalized, you didn't know any different. And then this space that you had during your recovery allowed some of that to start to, I don't know, the questions to start to come around like, am I really happy? Is this really what I want? Who are these people who are either showing up or not? So tell me a little bit about the people, not the people that fell away, because I think we understand what happens with those people, especially if you've been a big people pleaser. Tell me about the people that you started to attract in, like new friends, new acquaintances. How were they? Because they're the ones that I love, because they're the ones that are really aligned to who you truly are. And sometimes they're quite different to the people that you've spent 20, 30 years associating with, thinking that they're your people. And then you meet your people and you're like, oh yeah, like 3 weeks and I feel like I've known you for 30 years and I've told you my deepest, darkest secrets.
Absolutely. You've just nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. I want to touch on one thing before we go into that. So, I always say it was that moment with respect to almost passing away, that was real clarity, and because I said there's so many different times where there's different pieces of clarity. When I had my daughter, that was another big piece of clarity, because now you have to protect somebody else. And it's not just, you can abandon yourself because you know that. But when it's your child, there's no more abandonment of certain things, right? Like you show up in such a different way when you're a parent as well. And so, that was such a significant piece for me when it comes to that. And then obviously almost passing away. So I wanted to bring that in, because I know we've talked about the parenting thing, and it's such a huge piece to that, because at the end of the day, I've asked myself over and over and over, is if this was my child, what would I want her to do? Right. And what piece of advice would I give her? Because that's the same piece of advice I need to give myself, when I was little, that I didn't necessarily have, growing up or what have you. Right. So it's such a pivotal piece. So, now going into the new attraction of people, and even my new career in the sense, and it is exactly what you said. It's just like the attraction, it's the saying of what you put out into the world is what you receive. And it truly is, because, if you're not being authentic and it's not that I wasn't authentic and real. Everybody that knows me in my entire life is, I'm empathetic, and, she wears her feelings on her sleeves, and emotional and sensitive. I'm all those things. But I think you start to box them. I think you start to, that person can't show up in this scenario, or that person who you are doesn't work here. I mean, I'm in law enforcement. That's obviously kind of comes with, you have to be tough. And you have to box certain personality to kind of get through different traumatic experiences. But, and I've been around that for years, of law enforcement, and great people, and I have some great friends there. But going out into this new branch of how I want to show up, and the people that I'm around now, they are true cheerleaders, like authentic, pure cheerleaders. And they want to see you as the person you authentically are, want to do well. And it feels genuine. It feels like you don't need to quash who you are. And everything is just it's okay, like who you are. And, this really impacted me. And this is where it hit me one time. So I've done tons of speaking in law enforcement. And over the years, it became more and more difficult. How I'd show up in the room, the nerves, just the different feeling about it. And I'm like, wow, like I used to like speaking in public. I used to love being a mentor and a teacher. And I'm like, it's gone. Like it's nerve wracking. I find it very stressful now. And when I started getting into, leaving that, going into my newer career and starting to speak again and educate and show up in webinars and lectures and speaking, I was excited. I was so excited. And it's like I found my voice again. And one night there's such clarity around this. And I'm like, it wasn't me all along. It was the audience. It wasn't me. I hadn't changed who I was, but it was who I felt like I was presenting to, or was I getting the respect back in the room? Or did I feel like these people actually wanted to hear what I had to say? That was the change, right? And I'm in so many different rooms now with just incredible, fascinating people. And everyone wants to know what the other one has to say. Everyone wants to know what you're about and genuinely caring about the next person in the room. And so that is, I would say to anybody, if you're not in that place or not in that space, you need to find it, because it's incredible what it does in terms of just how you feel, in the way of confidence and life and fulfillment and friendships and love and just the unconditional acceptance, right? It's huge.
Yeah, it's interesting because it sounds like, and I went through a very similar transition where my success was measured on what other people thought of what I did. So did I get the leadership award? Was I getting promoted? Like all those sort of things. But then you sort of get swept up in that and you're like, fine. I remember a job was briefed to me as a promotion and I actually paused for the first time and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
And then it was terrifying because I was like, what are they going to think if I don't say yes to it? Because everything had been geared towards other people's opinion of me and how well I was doing. And it was one of those turning point moments where I was like, I don't really know what I want. And I don't know if I ever knew what I wanted because I, followed school, uni, did the thing. I did exercise some discernment because what I did at university, I didn't end up working a day in. So I was making some changes, but I was not aligned fully with what I really wanted to be doing. And so there was this big external validation piece. But as you said, you were more worried about the audience, which that is external validation. When you're in these new rooms now, is the audience even a concern, or are you more about sharing your truth and speaking about what you're passionate about? How has that changed?
I think obviously the people that are in the room are there to hear you, right? And they want to hear what you have to say, or they're coming to hear you talk on a specific topic. So they're genuinely showing up excited anyway, right? So I think that is a big part of it. I think a lot of time, and I have clients that are corporate, and it's so different when people are having to be somewhere, in the corporate world and having to show up, right?
Being told to go something.
Exactly. Right. So, there's just such a different shift. And I hear corporate people speak of this all the time in terms of my coaching is when you are in corporate and you are moving up, I think there's just a standard and, a part where you just have to adapt certain things along the way. That might not be necessarily aligned with yourself, but if you do want to move up, that is just part of it. And, and that is a big portion of it. And I think, I've heard several of my clients say from a corporate level, very high level executive, and they walk away. They walk away from huge jobs, huge financial positions because it's just not aligned with who they are. And it's very, very difficult because it's, everything comes with that. Your identity up until that point, or you thought your identity up until that point, financial, and walking away from, this is what I think that I've been for like 20, 30 years. So there's real like learning your identity in a way, again, when you walk away from those roles. But to see the shift from, law enforcement to nutrition and wellness, it's been hugely impactful. But I mean, that ultimately was a decision that I made in that moment after almost passing away, that I was going to follow my wellness and then my nutrition goals and work towards that. And that was a place that I wanted to be, where I authentically wanted to show up. I could run my business on the values, the morals, the ethics that were true and authentic to me. And so that's been like the most amazing piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about your journey from disassociated? Because you have described that, and I know for a lot of people in law enforcement, unfortunately, it is the survival and coping mechanism because of what you're exposed to, daily,
sure.
weekly, to teaching people about, like, coaching people in wellness and nutrition, which is all in the body. So the complete opposite. Can you sort of walk us through your journey from disassociated to full mind-body congruence and integration?
Absolutely. And, I think I reflect on this a lot because, obviously life experiences, I can really show up, and I've lived it, I've breathed it in terms of being in really unhealthy dynamics, situations, trauma, almost passing away. And through all those phases, even the disassociation phase and all the different times, even earlier on, when I look back in my early times of life before policing, there was levels of disassociation. And I think there's a part of that that's normal, even if not law enforcement, just in regular life, because we have to move through something. We need to get up and we got to move on the next day, and we got to go to work, and we have kids. And I think there's a level of that in everyone's life. I think when it becomes extremely unhealthy is when it becomes your norm. When you have to disassociate and almost really abandon yourself on many levels, that it becomes unwell. And so, I have been so lucky in the terms of, even through law enforcement, I've always tapped into that. So despite, obviously going to scenes and going through horrific things in life, and I went through a lot of disassociation, even through all my medical procedures. And it's survival. It's a mechanism to get through, because you need to get through the moments. But when I look back, I've always tapped into health and wellness. I've always tapped into, working out, showing up for myself, showing up on a yoga mat, doing some mental work, probably not to the degree that it was needed, for sure. And that's why I'm so excited for it to be my entire existence now, right? Where it's like I can leave that all behind. But I think the disassociation, I would say, if you talk to anybody in life, they've had degrees of it. And it's to what degree? But the disassociation, I would say for sure, in law enforcement, of course, is across the board. You need to function from call to call, to investigation, sometimes from meeting to meeting, right? And then you have to come home and you have to be a mom, and you have to be a wife, and you have to be a sister and a daughter and all those things, right? So yeah, it's, I think when I reflect on that in terms of now I'm showing up in the health and wellness space. I'm trying to be an example. And I feel like I live and breathe health and wellness. But yeah, is there a part where I've had to really dig deep and say, I've disassociated, in this area of life to get through the moments. But it comes down to, really looking at the moments and self-care, self-empathy, and just working through it, digging deep, pulling back the layers, what's there. And the biggest thing is walking through, right? Like, you try to walk around and you do for years, walk around that and try to navigate that. But eventually you got to walk straight through it. And that's where all the clarity for sure comes in.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I mean, some people won't ever walk through it, and that's always a choice. But
Yes,
it's very brave when you do walk through it. And it's very
for
also
sure.
liberating and freeing because you can let go of the grip that it's had on you for many, many, many years.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
can you tell me a little bit about what you were like as a little girl?
Yeah, it's not a lot of things that I haven't talked about a whole lot. But when you reflect, I think a big part of what is self-learned is if you're, more of the responsible role and the parenting role as more a child when you shouldn't be in that role, you already start to self-abandon, right? Your needs aren't as important necessarily. You start to, even when you're little and something isn't right or something doesn't appear right or sound right or feel right, but the situation isn't, it doesn't allow for it. So you already start to second guess. Did I hear that right? Did I see that right? Did I feel that right? Well, no, everyone else around seems quite normal. So it must be me, right? So I think that starts very early. And so I think what happens if that's your base, you kind of go, you kind of keep going on that. And your boundaries start to get pushed more and more further out as time goes, especially if you're in environments that no one's saying, hey, like, what's going on here? How did you feel in that? That was not right. But if you don't have that surrounding and, you're kind of looking to be like that wasn't right, but no one else is reflecting on it or, bringing that up in a way that it should, you start to just think that it's you potentially, right? And I think that's where some of the self-abandonment comes in. And that I think for a lot of people that starts quite early through, any different types of scenarios that take place, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we learn our survival mechanisms at a very young age. They're just playing out in different ways as we go through the decades until we decide to do something about it because it's like not working for us anymore. It's become a block or it's burnout or it's, all the things that people end up going through. Um,
absolutely.
looking back on your childhood, can you see a connection between what roles you had to play? Sounds like you were parentified, like as a caretaker as a young child and stuff, and looking after others and caring for others. Can you see how that shaped your choice to go into law enforcement?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of law enforcement have family in law enforcement. I grew up in Saskatchewan, a small town. Nobody in my family was in law enforcement. So I don't know where that desire came, but it came from very, very young. I knew from probably early teens and 100%. I think it didn't come from anywhere else. I didn't have anybody I knew even in it. We had a few police officers in my small town. But I think it was truly that the shift to do what's right and to help others in situations and to show up in a way that I could protect. And, I went into obviously major crimes and sex crimes, and different fields. And I always had an interest in different areas, particularly, I think, just to help the vulnerable, to help the young and the weak. And when I look back, it absolutely created that path for me to be a police officer. And even when I went into fitness and wellness, like it's to help, it's to really tap into making people feel better. And now that I'm in nutrition and wellness, it's come in a different form, but it's really the depths of the same thing, right? Really caring about people and wanting to change outcomes, right?
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I can feel that from everything you've been saying. And it's an
Mhm.
interesting. It's the same purpose. It's just in a different environment. So I love that.
Uh,
Can you tell me about when you have a near-death experience? Because I haven't had one.
mhm.
What did it teach you or enlighten you on the fear of death that so many of us have?
Oh, wow. That's a heavy one. I think, when I was going through it, because it was such a traumatic time and um, so out of like, there was no preparing. There was no time of, for example, sickness that I had time to put my mind to that I'm not doing well. And I've had a chance to say goodbye or prepare myself. Like it was literally from 24 hours, I may not be here. Like I may not see my daughter again. I might get teary, but
Yeah.
it's like, um, it's in that moment. And we know people who pass away very quickly or have that time, right? And I think that's where there's a reflection on you were here one time in life. Like you need to truly show up for yourself. Nobody else is showing up. You are it for yourself. You are your own best friend. You are the one that's going to show up in the toughest of times for yourself. Regardless of your circle, I was the one fighting. I was the one in that bed with the moments, with the thoughts, with everything. And, there was a time where I'm like, I may not be able to speak with my daughter again. And it was like, the biggest part of me for, I guess, the peace in that is I knew that the people that I love so deeply knew that I love them so deeply. It didn't matter if I couldn't tell them again. Like, you hear people say, don't ever leave it unsaid. Don't ever, like, if you love somebody, tell them you love them because you just don't know. And that was like, and there was moments where I'm like, my daughter knows how much I love her. Even if I were to leave in this moment, the people know, like and I've lived like that. People know, like, I love hard. If I love you, I love you,
You know
it,
me,
right?
yeah.
If you're in my circle, I am loyal to you till forever, right? Um, and I would say in terms of that is like, that's such a big message. And you hear it, all the time, but I think it's really important because I think even in my coaching business, health and wellness business, you hear that time and time again. When people are sick, their regrets are they don't have enough time, right? Or they didn't take care of themselves when they could have, right? Like when you look at the regrets in life, it's not that you didn't buy a better car or you didn't buy a better house or you didn't, whatever. It's, I don't have more time. And the relationships potentially that you wish you could have amended or you didn't say something that you wish you would have said. Those at the end of the day is what it comes down to when, when you think that you maybe don't have any more time left. It's like, how did you make people feel that you were around? Right. And so those are the critical things that always that I always come back to. And I think that's why I'm such a person of gratitude. Gratitude now, obviously before that, but very much amplified after that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember when I had a really nasty bike crash in my early 30s. I was like 20s, I think it was the early 30s, but
Yeah.
in another country from where I was living. I smashed out my front teeth, had a week in hospital. It was not life or death by any means, but I had a similar pause like you had, because I had it impacted my brain functioning and things like that. So I actually
Yeah.
couldn't go back to work for about 2 months it was and I'd like walk into a room in my house and have zero idea why I was there and things like that. And so
Wow.
it was a really interesting phase. But in that time, I read the book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bonnie Ware. And I've spoken about it on Limitless a few times because it's one of the most pivotal books in my life, because it was one of the reasons that really got me thinking about where I was working at that time, because I was working at a really big law firm in Australia that was about to go through this huge global merger. And on paper, I was ticking all the boxes. But for me, it was a real reckoning of like at an identity level in my late 20s, like what impact do I want to be having? And like, if I'm only living this life once and I have a choice over what I'm doing, is what I'm doing every day, but this was particularly at work, is this actually what I want to be doing? And that book really changed the trajectory of who I was and where I was going, particularly for my career. Because in my late 20s, it was all about work and my boyfriend. That was it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have kids or anything. And so it was part of what spurred us to move to Canada. And it definitely spurred the type of job that I took here in Canada initially. And at 100% it spurred me to like, again, I got to a stage where I'm like, I'm not having the impact that I wanted to be having. What do I want to do with this one precious life? And so it's interesting because it definitely has driven me to do things that other people say are brave and courageous and all those things. But that book was all about, like, the number one regret was it was based on men, because it was written in a time where it was mostly men working for their whole careers because women were staying at home with kids. But their biggest regret was that they worked so much and they didn't do the work that they really wanted to do, that really lit them up, and that they didn't spend enough time with the people that they truly loved, because there's very few work colleagues who come to visit you on your deathbed.
Yeah, exactly.
Very few. You might be lucky to get a couple, but most of the time, by the time you're like in your 80s or 90s, those people are long gone, and it is your family or your friends who are the ones who show up. So did that really spur your curiosity into like, I love law enforcement and it's given me so much, but is there something else out there for me?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I've been in policing for obviously 27 years. And I think a lot of police officers go into more policing after or investigatively or what have you. But 100%, I'm still like, I'm always like that, right? Like, I feel like I have so much to do. I have so much to give yet. It's just like, time is going. I need all this to happen here. Like, so I will, I mean, as long as I possibly can, I'll be relearning, I'll be doing something, I'll be, wanting to impact somebody in a different way and showing up in, all the right ways for everyone that's in my life. But, when you said the impact is my philosophy is build for impact. And so when you said impact, it's obviously a broad philosophy that I have, but it's all my leadership and my wellness is built for impact, strong body, strong mind. And that is the exact philosophy of it is build for that impact on how you're impacting people. But obviously build for impact in the sense of you want to make sure that you're preparing yourself for the hard days, not the best days. and really just how you want to impact the world, how you want to show up, how you want to be left remembered. And you were so right. And I've seen it time and time again with, my clients and in coaching, is that they literally have become their work. Their identity is their entire existence, and they don't know anything else other than that. And you're so right. At the end of the day, at the end of their career, maybe failed marriages or, just putting so many hours into the point of burnout and exhaustion, none of that matters at the end of the day, right? Like truly at the end of the day, it doesn't matter really material wise or what have you. It's in the final moments, who's around and how the impact was made on those people that are around in those moments, right? So yeah, it really is a reflection on all of that. And I think, sometimes, like you said, some people never learn it. Some people learn it at different times in life. Sometimes it's a wake-up call, which a lot of, some of my clients are, right? It's like they have now medical issues and they're looking at them, and it's just like, now it's time for me to make change. And that's often how it is, right? We're not forced to make change until we need to make change. And, I look at, going through any of my situations and my near-death experience or what have you, is anything that I've gone through in life is you need to get up and you need to be better and you need to be stronger and you need to let it go. And don't make you bitter, don't make you harsh or hard or, still love as big as you always did and give as much as you always did, but just, show up and be better for it, regardless of the circumstance. Yeah.
I love that. If someone who's listening is like nodding along, but they feel like, but I am in this job and I've been doing the same job for a certain amount of time and it pays well and I've got kids and like they're in that story, because I know you and I
100%.
like lived that.
Yeah. In a way, I'm still in it. I'm still policing, Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What's some inquiry or advice you have for people who are in that, but there's that little glimmer of like, what we're talking about is lighting a little fire or a little light somewhere inside of you. What would you encourage these people to do to like make this bright shine bigger and brighter?
And I love that question. And this is a huge bulk of my coaching and how do people to get that movement going, right? And I would say if you have any desire, no matter what it is, it's a passion, it's a new career, whatever it is start to make steps towards it. Even if you're stuck in your current situation, even if a lot of times people can't move right away. There's financial reasons. There's a ton of reasons, life reasons, responsibility. It just isn't, it's not possible. It simply isn't possible. But what I would say to that is if there's a passion and there's something more out there that you're wanting to do or learning to do, or, just really that desire of hopefully changing the path of whatever that is start to lay the nuggets of the change. So if it is a course, if it's reading a book, if it's doing something online to start moving towards the goal. So even for myself, I mean, my goal of nutrition wellness, it took me 6 years of going back to school, working full time, taking my education on the side of literally my kitchen island, trying to run the rest of the world, right? But it's amazing what that was doing to me, even in the time. I was exhausted. I was like, wow, what am I doing? There was moments of like, is this craziness? Like, I'm going to start a new career in my like late 40s and 50s. But all that time, it's like I'm doing something towards something that I truly want to do, that's in alignment with myself. I have control of it. I'm working towards something that I truly desire. And so even if it's small pieces, but set it in motion. whatever it looks like. Just set your goal in motion. And it might be literally writing it out for now, or journaling it out, or, taking any kind of small steps. Because once you start to take small steps, it gains momentum. And really, without the steps, without the little momentum, then it won't change if you don't have anything that you're starting to make the path forward. And it may be something that you're working towards and it's 5 years or 6 years from now, but that's okay. It's you're showing up for yourself is what you're doing. And you're saying, that you are worthy of that, and you're authentically doing something towards something that you desire personally, that you want for yourself. So I always just start whatever it is.
Yeah, I love it, because you and I both sound like we had a history of self-abandonment. And when you show up for yourself, every step of the way is putting another gem or a coin in the self-trust bucket, which is the one we want full, not the self-abandonment one. And
Absolutely.
one of the things I also would love to add, because I loved your answer, was enjoy the journey.
Uh-huh.
Because even if you set a goal, when you get there, it might actually not be exactly what you wanted, and you might have changed your mind, especially if it's over 4, 5, 6 years. But if you can enjoy the moment of that, I remember the first course that I paid for myself and coach, I paid for myself out of my own bank account, and not corporate paying for me to do a course or corporate paying for me to get a leadership coach. The ones that I paid for, they're so much sweeter. When you're logging in, you're really invested, because it's your money, not some corporation's money. And
Absolutely.
there's a real buzz in that. And then just the enjoyment of it along the way, because that's all you've got. Going back to what we said, it's one day at a time. No one knows when life is going to be up. You didn't know, you almost died, and it was, there was no warning. So enjoy each step every step you put, every action you take into your self-trust, into the this is the future me bucket. Enjoy all those steps.
100%.
Because it means the finish line is not the be all and end all. And I think that's what a lot of people get trapped by. I've changed. When I left corporate, I was doing leadership coaching. I studied neuroscience. It was all mindset. And now I'm coaching people in trauma, and it's so different. And it's less than 3 years. So if you're a person who likes to reinvent themselves, and you probably will, just enjoy the journey, because there is no destination.
Absolutely. And, that is such a pivotal piece, is enjoying the journey, because I think we're very much the society of that, right? Is when I get there, I'll be happy. When I get there, I'll be happy. If I get there, I'll be happy.
You won't be.
You won't be, because when you get there, you're not happy, and then you're waiting for the next thing, right? And it's truly the journey. And I think if you sit in the journey and really take ownership of what you're in, and even hard moments, there's still moments to really, they always say it's a lesson or what have you in it, right? And along the way, there's so much to learn in all of that. But it's so pivotal. It's what we hear, and enjoy the moment, because it really does come down to that, right? And about filling the bucket, I just want to touch base on that, because that's such an important piece. And I found that, along the way, when you're doing things for yourself and you're succeeding, and the harder they are, and you're I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. And I mean, even me moving from law enforcement to health and wellness, and opening up my own business, and, podcasts and webinars and talks and speaks, speaking engagements and things like that. And all, a lot of online webinars and masterclasses and things like that. I don't have any background in IT whatsoever. A lot of it is all very new. But every time you're learning something new and succeeding at it, you're proving to yourself that you're capable. And I mean, I know that I'm capable, because I've been through some really hard stuff. but you're showing up for yourself and you're getting through it. And that's always where the growth is. And that momentum where I said, just start, because the momentum is so important. And it's pivotal in terms of confidence, and it's never too late, ever too late to start whatever you desire. I'm going to be that, everyone's like, you're going to be that, 70, 80, 90-year-old still doing this and doing that. I'm like, absolutely, I will be, because, there's never an age limit. If you want to do it, just go do it. Right. If you can do it, go for it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I went to a cool event earlier last year, and they had people speaking it was on midlife. It was called the Shift sessions, and it was like 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds. The ones who spoke in this, the lady was like 73 and the guy was 79. They were incredible, insane. And this lady had been a journalist, and she'd retired at 69, 70, and she was a couple of years retired, and she'd written like multiple books. And it was such an inspiration of like, well, A, life doesn't finish when you retire, and B, with what they're predicting with technology, we could be living way over 100. You know what I mean? So what we think is just midlife now, by the time I'm 80, may not be midlife. I might be in midlife then. So I love your mindset of just keep learning, and age is just a number, because it could become obsolete. I know in my lifetime, age could almost become quite obsolete. So you may as well just make the most of every day and keep learning and follow your passions and your desires, as you say. One thing I'll add to that is be clear on what you're desiring and go after that, but also get really honest and responsible with yourself around what you're avoiding and what your aversions are, because they're sneaky and they will block your progress on your desires if you're not careful.
Absolutely. Well said. That couldn't have been better said. I have a masterclass coming up in March with a lady in her 70s. And it's about leadership and, midlife and wellness and, showing up. And a lot of the leaders are right in their 50s and 60s, going through perimenopause, menopause, and all these different life stages. And it's, how you're showing up, in that period of time. And there's just, the messaging there is a lot of time, I guess, for women, especially, 50s, 60s, it's like, oh, menopause, postmenopause, it's like life's over, and it's just like, no way. And hers is unapologetically, I'm showing up. And I think for women, especially in midlife, you do kind of have to reassess a lot of things. You're going through a lot of different phases of life anyway. But a big piece, I think, if you've been caring for a career, your children, whatever's going on, there's a period of time now where it's just like, okay, this is my time and I'm showing up, and I am, unapologetically showing up. And the fierceness of that, and no more apologies for who I am. I'm going to show up for myself. And anyway, she's amazing. And she's in her 70s, and she is a firecracker, super inspirational. So much to learn, right? When we think about it. And even in my nutritional business, obviously showing up in my 50s. And I had some people say, they're like, oh, second career, it started obviously in my 40s, but, in terms of just clients and putting yourself out there. And I'm like, I have got so much life experience. I don't even know where to begin. The credibility piece, and I've been through so many different phases and stages. And I think we can really, really learn, from, I guess this goes to the age, right? Is it's so much inspiration and so much wisdom there. That I just love tapping into all of it. So yeah, it's incredible.
I think also as well for people who are thinking of maybe leaving corporate and going out to do their own thing, or starting a side hustle with a view that maybe that's a future venture for you. Just be wary of getting advice from people who haven't actually walked the path that you're considering, because a lot of people will have a fear response to what you're doing. Oh my God, that's, what are you doing? And why would people want to work with you? And da 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 da.
Yeah.
And they're totally entitled to their thoughts and opinions, but just lean into the people who have walked that path and listen to their lessons, because they're lived experiences rather than fears being projected.
100%. Yeah, it's such a good point, right? Because a lot of it is fear-based, right?
99.999%.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. I'm, in many areas, right? So yeah, just live the life to the fullest for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, before we get into rapid fire, I ask every guest this one question.
Oh, rapid fire. Okay.
So transformation often happens in small intentional steps, as you have referenced. It's rarely these huge quantum leaps that unlock long-lasting change. So based on your journey to date, Lynae, what's one step or action our listeners can take to unlock their limitless potential?
I would say, this is what I always say to certain people that they're not even sure of what that is sit in silence, really, really listen to yourself, and know wholeheartedly what is saying to you in that moment. And that's where your journey needs to take you. That is where you'll find the limitless path, right? In terms of really finding the authentic area of where you need to go. Because everybody knows deep down where they need to go, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're not going to hear this on a podcast or read it in a book. It's in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's do rapid fire. What's the biggest misconception people have about you?
I would say, because I'm a police officer, that I'm super authoritative, and harder, not emotionless, but can handle it all, like tough.
Tough. Yeah. I love it. I love it. What's one leadership lesson the universe keeps serving up to you again and again and again to keep relearning?
Wow. I would say boundaries. Boundaries is a big one. Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful. And what's one part of yourself that you used to hide, but now you lead with?
I would say having empathy, having emotions. I lead with that. I lean into it more now, where before, for a long time, it kind of had to be shunned or looked upon as a negative thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. It links to your first response about the misconceptions. That's beautiful. When you hear the word limitless, what are 3 feelings, words that are evoked for you?
Oh, wow. Limitless. Power. Strength. I have 4. Authentic.
Go for it. 4.
And resilience.
Oh,
resilience.
I love it.
Yeah.
Resilience. Okay, beautiful. And finally, Lynae, if you're having a bit of a down moment or struggling through the day, what's one song that you can love to put on just to lift your mood and vibration?
Oh, wow. I have so many, and now they're not on the spot. I can't think of them. And I so have it in my mind, the beat and everything. It's I think it's No Matter, or yeah, it's something like that. It's basically no matter what. It's kind of like a fight song.
Yeah,
the fight
song.
The fight song. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on Limitless today and sharing such a vulnerable and heartfelt story. I know everyone listening will have so many takeaways from your wisdom that you shared with us today. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Limitless. If you enjoyed today's episode and love hearing the stories of courageous cycle breakers, I'd be grateful if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your feedback not only helps others discover the show, but it also amplifies our mission to unlock emotional freedom and true potential. Every review makes a difference in helping more people embrace their limitless life.